to the middle. There's no reason for you to be very far away so you could see clearly. It's up to you. So I just arrived this morning from Lund. I've been in Sweden for 4 or 5 days. I'm really enjoying the amazing weather you have. You think it's bad weather, to me it's a nice adventure. I live in the castle now, so I feel like Cinderella, a very cold Cinderella though. But I arrived here this morning and you have a really beautiful town. I wish I had more time. Unfortunately, I have to leave in the morning. So we'll have this talk today and we'll have questions and answers after it as long as the time allows. And then at the very end, I'm going to leave you a link to my email address and my page on Facebook. You're most welcome to stay in contact and ask more questions or post your comments or tell me your impressions or share insights or whatever. When we talk today, you'll find out what we will be talking about, and then you're most welcome to stay in touch. It's taken me 6 years to get to Sweden, yes?
Would it be okay if I record this?
Go ahead, please. Anybody wants to record, take pictures, whatever it is, I'm fine, no problem. It's taken me 6 years to come to Scandinavia. And no, I didn't come on my camel from Cairo. Actually, I started a project 6 years ago. You remember the cartoons crisis in Denmark? There was a bunch of cartoons that were published that caused a potential confrontation. We'll talk a bit about that a little later. After that incident, I started a project called Don't Hate, Educate. And that was my answer to that crisis. As a communicator, what I do for a living is I teach communication, creative communication, and intercultural communication diversity and presentation skills. So you can rate me on my presentation skills today. And so when that incident happened, I figured that people who know what miscommunication is should take the stand and try to do something about that problem. So I started that project 6 years ago. And I've been communicating with young people in Denmark and Sweden and Norway and Finland since then. And now it's spread out to other countries. We have more than 5,000 fans now on our Facebook page, people communicating from all over the world. And since then, I really wanted to be here and talk to you like this. And for some odd reason, nobody invited me. Everybody wanted to come to Egypt, but nobody cared to invite Egyptians over here. So I'm really grateful for this invitation. Thank you very much for being here. Last year, like today, I was in Tahrir Square in Cairo. And we had a very interesting activity in the morning. There was a Christian prayer. There was a priest right in the middle of the square who was making a prayer publicly. And me and my Muslim friends and my Christian friends were attending together the Mass and saying Amen after the priest when he made prayers for Egypt to be safe and to be free and to have more rights and democracy. When he finished, an imam took over. And he said a very similar prayer, and everybody said Amen, Muslims and Christians. And that was the spirit that we had in Tahrir throughout the revolution, and very, very happy that it continued until now. 6 years ago, like today, my project was born, the one I just talked to you about. And so when I got the invitation to come here, on those exact same dates, I had to make the connection, I believe in signs and messages, so I was thinking, what could be the message? There has to be something that relates cross cultures and revolution together. And that's how I came up with the information you're going to see today in this lecture. Change is a fact of life. We have to adapt to change to be able to survive. Because there's change all around us, everywhere, every day. However, it's not that easy to change. Do you want to play a little game? Great. Everybody stand up. Everyone. If you don't have somebody next to you, go to someone next. Be next to somebody. I'm going to pair you. Each two people look at each other. Each two of you look at each other. Each two of you face each other. So if you don't have a friend, find somebody who doesn't have a partner. Great. Now study each other a little bit. Keep it down so you can hear me, because I don't want to raise my voice too much. So look at your friend, study them a little bit, make sure you remember how they look like. Now turn your back to your friend and change 3 things in your appearance very quickly. Change something very quickly. Yeah, don't look at each other. Yeah, backs together, change something. Right. Now turn around and look at each other and try to find out what you have changed. Great, are you done? Thank you very much, sit down. Thank you, that's it, finished. Finito, enough. كفاية. Thank you, sit down. Give yourself a little hand. Thank you. Now, what did we just learn from this little exercise? As soon as I said thank you, sit down, what did you do? You put back everything back, right? So change, this is how we are built to resist change. This is just a little funny game to prove a point. But as soon as I took the pressure off you to change, you put it back. The reason why I'm starting this lecture with this concept is for us to keep this in mind while we're discussing the changes that happened in our world in the past year. Because now you know how much resistance they happened against, even internally. So even the people who made the changes have actually had to fight against their own inherent quality to resist change. Do you get it now? Excellent. You've done it yourself, so you believe it. So before we go any further, we have to ask ourselves, what causes change? Let me borrow this very nice Swedish coat. You're familiar with the environment, obviously. I had to look on the internet to come up with a picture like that. And you recognize the lady? Of course. You read the stories when you were a child. So every beautiful creation in the world started as a beautiful idea in somebody's imagination. And all the topics we're going to be discussing tonight are going to have started that way. They started as an idea, just an idea. The first one was how I tried to change a very tense situation in Muslim-West relations through my project. And the lessons, how the revolution changed my life and what lessons we have learned from it and what we can all share as values to learn from the revolution in Egypt and in the Arab Spring. And finally, how I think the Arab Spring, particularly Egypt, particularly Tahrir Square, is influencing the whole world and what we can draw from that. Now, these topics seem completely far apart to be grouped together in one lecture, but actually the one thing that keeps them together is the lifeline of information in our time, and that is called social media. So at the very end, we'll discuss how social media impacted all those things. Let's start with the project I told you about. You remember the cartoons and you remember the class. And as a communicator, I thought it was a classic case of miscommunication. That's how I saw it. Just a bad antler day. So do you recognize the cartoonist? He's Danish, but I mean, so that's what I thought it was. And I thought that something has to be done about it. We have to make an effort in order to bridge the gap between the two cultures and change that miscommunication. But also, I thought it was a huge case of stereotyping. Let me give you an example. When I was packing to come here, I called my friends and I asked, what should I take with me? What's the weather like in Sweden? And someone said, oh, pack really warm clothes. You know, it's very, very cold in Sweden. It's even colder than Saudi Arabia. You were laughing. This is a Saudi snowman. This is really a Saudi snowman. Kids in Saudi Arabia made that on their way to school, just like kids in Sweden would make one when they have enough snow. In a desert climate, Saudi Arabia is a desert state. So in a desert climate, it gets extremely cold at night. And in winter, in the northern parts, it's not entirely impossible for snow to fall for several days. So they actually, sometimes the landscape is a bit like this, maybe for a day or two, not for a very long time. But there is snow in Saudi Arabia. It's just that we never think about it this way. We prefer to refer to the stored images we have in our mind from our culture, from our conditioning, about each other. And we deal with each other based on those boxes, stereotypes. My project works to challenge those stereotypes, exactly like I did right here when we were talking. After the cartoons crisis, I attended a panel discussion in Cairo. I was very eager to understand how different parts of the world who are involved are seeing this problem. So in a big cultural center in Cairo, there was this panel discussion advertised, and I went there, and there were 7 European ambassadors in the panel. discussing the concept of freedom of expression. So it sounded really, really interesting. I went and attended with a lot of my friends. Sadly, it wasn't a conversation. It was more a lecture. And we were being talked at, you know, what they were saying was passing above our heads, about the concept of freedom of speech and freedom of expression and human rights as if it's something we have never heard of. People were very angry. And we were taking notes to be able to ask and make comments at the end in the questions answers. Unfortunately, when that time came, you could only ask them questions through a moderator by writing it on a piece of paper, and then that person looked at the question and decided whether or not it should be answered, while the lecture was about freedom of expression. Of course, a lot of people got up and left. I was one of them. But at that time, when that happened to me, I thought that each side was defending itself and its values against a perceived threat coming from the stereotype they have about the other. And because I studied conflict resolution and communication, I figured something has to be done about that. What I saw is that each side was trying to claim to be the sole owner of the snowman. So I was thinking, where can we bring those very different people together where they can discuss? And I figured that visual art, creative visual art, could be a good platform. So I wondered, why not bring visual art in and use that kind of creative communication as a tool for conflict resolution? I don't think it has been done online before. And that's what the concept my project is based on. Online, it's called ZeroNet. Here is the URL if you want to copy it in order for you to take a look. And why zero? The slogan is "Don't hate, educate," and that's the name that people know it by now. But this is the URL, and why zero? What I was trying to do is take a negative concept and turn it around to have a positive impact. Zero is a negative concept. When you say zero, it means nothing. People usually think of nothing, a big fat zero. My name on the project is the big zero. I'm proud to be that, and you will see why. So I tried to find that negative concept and turn it around, and I tried to think of the one thing, invention or creation, where East and West can meet, and where they have both used to create a better life for humanity. And I dug up in history and the history of science and this kind of thing, and the concept of zero seemed to be that missing link for me. And here is how I expressed it on the site. This is the movie at the beginning of the site to explain to you why we called it zero. Focus on the screen. You get the idea? Okay, then you can go on the site and explore a little bit more, and then join us on Facebook for more discussions. The site is not interactive. It's just like an art display. And then you go on Facebook and have more interaction. Working on this project was actually one of the happiest times of my life, because I was doing something I really wanted, and it was working, and a lot of people were responding. We had a lot of people coming from universities in first and foremost from Denmark. In the first 6 months we started the project, we had 4 or 5 big trips with 40, 50 people in them from different universities. And that was amazing, because we weren't an organization, we were just a team of volunteers from all over the world, and it was quite interesting. So working was so much fun for me, and I wanted to get up in the morning and work. Although I had taken a year off from work to be able to do this project. It was the first time in my life I'm doing this for a year and I'm not being paid, and yet I want to wake up in the morning and work. So it made me think about the concept of happiness. What makes us happy? Before I came here, I started reading a little bit about you guys, and I was told that you are the happiest people on earth. So you probably have the answer to the question, that we all have. So what is your secret of happiness in one word? What is happiness? One word. Love, okay. Yes, love will heal the world. What else? Freedom. Time. Health.
Well-being.
Well-being. Well, I'm sure there are as many definitions of freedom, of happiness, that there are people on this earth. But our newfound secret of happiness in Egypt is called freedom. Something you have had for very long that probably many of you have stopped noticing it. But this is what people looked. I took this picture in Tahrir Square last year. And that was my first impression of the square. This was one of the first pictures I've taken as soon as I went into Tahrir last year. And the first impression I had was, wow, I've never seen so many smiling faces, which was completely amazing because it wasn't as if it was a walk in the park. That was a revolution. And people were being shot at, but you could see that they brought their children with them. Actually, some mothers brought nursing babies with them, to the extent that some volunteers set up a nursery in Tahrir. So you could leave your baby, go and demonstrate a little bit, come pick up the baby, have lunch together. Seriously, I mean, it was a very unusual atmosphere. I'm not going to go too much into details about the revolution itself, like what was happening there, because I already said that in a lecture last year in Harvard, in April of last year, and I have that online in video. So consider this part 2, the sequel. And when you go home, I'll give you the link, and then you can go and see part 1, which is a lot more details about what Tahrir Square was like the 18 days of last year. But let me tell you how I joined the Egyptian Revolution, as a teaser for the previous lecture, and then you can go and watch it there and we can continue. Actually, revolution literally passed under my window. I woke up one day and then my entire town was in the street demonstrating. I'll show you this one video. Try not to cry because we still have some time to talk today, and then we'll move on to the next topic. As I said, I can talk forever about what went on from that day onwards until today, but I'll leave you the link so you can watch it. And today I want to focus more on the big picture. I want to step back and look at the lessons and the headlines rather than the small details. The big picture. When I say the word Tahrir Square, the mental picture you have is probably what they show you in the news, that huge space full of people, a big crowded place. But actually, we need to remember that crowds are made of individual people like you and me. So it's eye-opening and fascinating and life-changing to go to ground level and look those individual people in the face and try to know them in person and try to know the personal stories. And that's exactly what I was doing. I took my camera with me and I was interviewing people I met through a video most of the time. Like, who are you? Why are you here? Aren't you afraid? What brought you here? What do you want? And things like that. And I have some fascinating videos you can see in my previous lecture. But what we need to remember as well is that crowds are not created equal. Not every crowd is an empowering crowd. There are crowds that suck the energy out of you, like this one. How many of us have been in a crowd like that? Yeah, all of us. And there are crowds that change you, energize you, inspire you, and literally transform your life, like this one. I took this picture in Tahrir Square exactly like today, last year. And being there really changes a lot of things about you. I've seen people transform in front of my eyes. One of the things that really changed for everybody in Egypt is our interest in politics. We were totally apathetic to politics before the revolution because it didn't matter. Whether or not you went and voted, the person you voted for did not go to office. Somebody else did. Whether or not you talked about politics, it didn't make a difference because you couldn't make a change. You had no voice. And then suddenly you had a voice. And so you can't imagine how much people are so into politics right now, to the extent that people who sweep the street would talk to you about which candidate they voted for and what they want in the constitution and things like that. It's unbelievable, the energy we have right now. So the question is now, what started the Egyptian revolution? Usually the rhetoric in international media is that Egyptians are a third world country, Egyptians are poor, they were on the street because this was a bread riot, they were hungry, they didn't have jobs, and they just wanted to eat. But actually, let me borrow this quote from Gallup Research Center. So it was actually the difference in expectations that caused the revolution, which tells you that there is a certain level of awareness among the average Egyptian, even if they are not educated and even if they are not very well off. They knew what they are missing, and they were ready to risk their life for it. And I'm a witness to that. I have seen that happen in front of my eyes. I've originally wanted to share with you the lessons I have learned from the Egyptian revolution, but then as soon as I started thinking, I realized that the biggest lesson I learned was to take the M in me and flip it 180 degrees and make it a W, make it we. So I thought, let's take this to the next level. I did a little Facebook experiment. I'm very active on Facebook, so you're welcome to join me after we finish. I posted a question in Arabic to my Egyptian friends on Facebook, and I said, in one word, put one word in a comment, what is the biggest lesson you have learned from the Egyptian revolution? Just one word, post as many comments as you like. 300 comments later, I told them, okay, now add a picture to the word you have posted that illustrates a picture from the revolution that illustrates the lesson you have learned. I was very flattered that some of them picked some of my pictures. So, so now we had a word and we had a picture to illustrate it. Remember, I told you I love visual communication. And then I told them, okay, what are the best songs of the revolution that really represent the revolution for you? And they listed them. And I said, okay, now rate them. And then here's what I did. I took all this information, the words, the pictures, and the music they picked, and I compiled a 1-minute video that has a complete cross-cultural message from the Egyptian people to you with the sights, sounds, and feelings of the Egyptian revolution. Here it is.
يا الميدان كنت فين من زمان معاك غنينا ومعاك شقينا وحاربنا خوفنا ودعينا ايد واحدة نهار وليل ومفيش معاك شيء مستحيل صوت الحرية بيجمعنا خلاص حياتنا بقى ليها معنى مفيش رجوع صوتنا مسموع والحلم خلاص ما بقاش ممنوع
يا الميدان كنت فين من زمان هديت السور نورت النور لميت حواليك شعب مكسور اتولدنا من جديد واتولد الحلم العنيد بنختلف والنية صفرا أوقات الصورة ما كانتش واضحة حنصون بلدنا وولاد ولادنا حق اللي راحوا من شبابنا.
This little Facebook experiment, along with my intercultural experience, gave me a bit of insight on why these same lessons are sprouting all over the world now, in revolutions everywhere. Of course, you know the Occupy movement, the indignance movement in Europe, Can you imagine that protests inspired by Tahrir Square in particular have happened in the past year in all the inhabited continents of this planet? They actually have covered 951 cities in 82 countries. This is something monumental that deserves to be looked at closely and studied. And I suggest that those of you in research, this is a topic you need to really look at closely. I'm sure you'll gain many insights, and if you do, please contact me. I'll be very interested to help out and to read your work. For so many decades, my part of the world was on the receiving end of cultural influence from the West. We were learning from you a lot of things, and we were copying you in many things, in the way we dressed, in the way we spoke, the languages, the movies, the music. Suddenly, in 18 days, that has changed. The direction has changed from one square, relatively small in comparison to the world, one square in Cairo, to all these cities and countries all over the world. There obviously are a lot of lessons to learn from that. And I wanted, during the past year, I was very focused on collecting information, pictures, articles about this, about the impact of Tahrir Square on the rest of the world. So here it is in a video, very quick, another 1-minute video, to show you the impact of Tahrir Square on the different parts of the world, mainly the West.
Gathered here with my family, my neighbors and my friends, standing firm together against oppression, holding hands. It doesn't matter where you're from, or if you're young, old, woman or man. We're here for the same reason, we want to take back our land. Oh God, thank you for giving us the strength to hold on. And now we're here together, calling you for freedom, freedom. You know you can hear our call. Oh, oh, we're calling for freedom, fighting for freedom. We know you won't let us fall. Oh, oh, we know you're here with us. No more being prisoners in our homes, no more being afraid to talk. Our dream is just to be free, just to be free. Now when we've taken our first step towards a life of complete freedom.
I was very surprised to see this picture in particular in Occupy Wall Street in New York, out of all places. You know, Occupy New York, Occupy Wall Street is based on how people are furious at how the bankers are handling their business and how it's affecting everybody else's life. And so to find an American, a New Yorker, with this sign saying, perhaps there are solutions in a place we haven't looked before, I mean, that was very, very interesting for me to see. And it illustrates the reason why I'm using this as the example, because it's a very clear example illustrating the new platform that Tahrir Square has created for two different parts of the world that were potentially very confrontational and clashing only 6 years ago, to this, that people are now considering maybe we have been missing some lessons from each other. So it tells me that the West is now a little bit open to share and learn some lessons from us, as we have been open to share and learn lessons for a very long time. At the same time this was happening in New York, there were marches in Tahrir Square from the Egyptians right in the middle of their own worries and problems and revolution, supporting the Occupy movement. Perhaps including people who have marched in that same square a few years ago against George Bush's war on terror. So can you believe that those shared values that have emerged from the Arab Spring, and particularly from Egypt, Tahrir Square, have actually changed the paradigms of entire nations on how they perceive and interact with each other? This is unbelievable for me. When I was working on the material for this lecture, I have friends in Gallup Research Center. So I wrote them and I said, do you have any fresh information on how the Arab Spring has affected Muslim-West relations or Arab-West relations? And they said, actually, no. So here is another research topic. If some of you are doing their postgraduate studies or are looking to do something like that, this is an interesting topic that would probably result in a lot of insights. And again, if any of you are going to choose that topic, I'll be very willing to help and to read your material and support you in any way I can. I personally hope as well that problems like integration and immigration and so on will be, seen in a different light now, that the Arab world and the Arab people have shown that they are no less free and no less concerned for democracy and human rights than the rest of the world. Being oppressed is not a crime. You are the oppressed, you are the victim and not the perpetrator. And so maybe now we can look at problems like that in a different way because of how people have shown us what they really are made of at this point. I have one more insight to share, and that was really a very interesting little experience, again, on Facebook. On the page for Don't Hate, Educate, we have people from all over the world. And I have ongoing discussions all the time that challenge people a little bit and make them really think about their circumstances. So I said, describe the society you live in one word. Wherever you're from, just tell me in one word how you see your society. And I have to read you this because I was very astonished to see some of our Western members describe their societies in Europe and in the United States with words such as brainwashed, clueless, lost, gluttonous. If those words came from Middle Eastern people, I wouldn't be too surprised. But coming from Western people, it made me think they were surprised at each other, because that's what the site is for, to keep people, looking at each other's lives from different perspectives. For me, as an observer, it told me that the world is ill, and it has the same sickness all over the place. No matter how rich or poor we are, no matter how affluent, no matter how educated or privileged, at the end of the day, most of us feel there is something missing, and that missing something seems to be very similar all over the world, and it seems to have been put into the limelight because of the Arab Spring. This tells me that it's the time to heal the world. It's time for the people of the world to put their differences aside a little bit and try to reach out to each other now that they know that they are more similar than different. And obviously, I'm very happy that this kind of wake-up call for the world came from Egypt. This sign came from one of the Support Egypt marches around the world. It was in Canada last year. And you can see he spelled out the name in social media icons and internet icons. And this is our other topic, which is the lifeline of everything we've been talking about so far, which is social media. Before I go any further, there is an important question we need to answer, which is, did animals invent Twitter? Don't look at me like that, I'm joking. But actually, I'm not joking. There's a study in the UK that just found that, that animals communicate with each other in such a way that we do on Facebook and Twitter. So actually, when you're on your Facebook planning a party, you're actually, I'm sorry, very similar to monkeys and dolphins, according to the UK study. They found that animals discuss and tend to have conversations about where to find food and how to escape from predators, and very much in the same way that we do when we plan events on Facebook and Twitter. They have also found something else very interesting, which is that 6 degrees of separation. Are you aware of that concept? That everybody in the world is connected through 6 degrees of separation. So in that study, they also found out that even in the animal kingdom, it's more or less the same. And so since it applies to us as well, it seems that you have distant cousins in Egypt. So and one of the things actually that caught my attention as well while I was researching before I came here is an interesting project that now the Swedish citizens can actually run the country's Twitter account. Do you know that? Oh, you don't know that? good. Okay, tell them an Egyptian told me. But actually, it's true. Your Minister of Tourism decided that individual citizens in Sweden can actually represent Sweden on Twitter. So you take hold of the country's Twitter account and tweet as Sweden for 1 week. I like that concept very much. And if any of you ever decide to take advantage of that offer, I would definitely want to be following you, and I find out what you're saying and how people are reacting to you. So please, I invite some of you to go ahead and do that so that we learn from you. Once you do that, then I can go and demonstrate in Egypt, and I say I want to be like the Swedes. I want first of all, we want a Twitter account for Egypt, and then I want to be the administrator. I took this picture. This is another interesting cartoon that I found. The power in the 20th century with all the geared guys, and power now with all your smartphones. Finally, truth can travel faster than lies right now in our world because of that. And that has definitely, the power of the internet and social media and connection has definitely changed a lot of things in our world, and definitely have impacted how revolutions have spread in the Arab Spring and around the world in the past year. I've taken this picture in Tahrir Square last year. This is the information center. But actually, it tells me a lot. I'll give you a bit of background information. Before the revolution, we had trendy cafes like you have here, and we'd go with our iPhone, and then of course it runs out of battery very quickly, so you wanted to charge your phone, and they'd give you a little plexiglass box in the wall with a key. You put your phone there to charge, and you lock it and take the key in your pocket, because otherwise you lose your phone. It's very expensive. You can see all those phones on the ground, on the sidewalk in Tahrir. You can see some iPhones and some Blackberries and different types of expensive phones. This was the only place in Cairo you could actually leave your expensive phone on the sidewalk like that to charge and go and demonstrate in a place with 1 million strangers right in the middle of the street, and come back and find your phone exactly where you have left it, right next to your unattended lunch. And of course you could see, Vodafone agent was standing right there helping the people. So actually social media through, at that time, definitely smartphones, because you couldn't take your laptop with you. So smartphones and social media played a very crucial role in the revolution and exchanging information. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit down the line about the unusual uses of social media that we have been doing since the revolution until now. So in the revolution, before the revolution, during the revolution, and after the revolution. There are 30 million internet users in Egypt. There are 85 million people in Egypt, 20 million of them in Cairo. And there are 30 million people on the internet in Egypt. There was a 6 million person increase after the revolution, the first 6 months of the revolution. These are the official statistics, and because of so many changes of government and so on, it's very difficult to get very accurate numbers. So I'm assuming the numbers are a lot larger than that right now, because these numbers are from about 6 or 8 months ago. Let me show you first a video of how we were using social media, of the social media impact during the revolution, and then let's talk a little bit about how we were using social media in the revolution. Let's take a look at how the Arab Spring has been so visible on Twitter and Facebook and searches on Google. Concurrences, we have been using social media, particularly Twitter and Facebook. Basically, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube were the lifeline of the revolution in Egypt. People were reporting live. There is a huge increase in citizen journalism from people who have never even thought of practicing any form of journalism before, but Twitter, 140 characters, you can definitely do it very quickly on your phone and post pictures and videos of what's going on. They are definitely causing a big headache to traditional media. Part of it is state-run, full of lies. Suddenly, the state media is saying something, and the people are 180 degrees on the other side. So people started exposing the lies, finding out what's going on. Videos going viral of politicians who are lying, or people who are sending thugs to cause problems, or this kind of thing. But one of the most interesting things that I noticed, and I wonder if it's happening elsewhere in the world, tell me if you know of another example. Usually, the traditional use of social media is taking what's on the ground and putting it online so the world can see. So you go to a party, you take pictures, you put it on your Facebook so people can see what happened at the party. In Egypt, we are doing the full circle. We do that, but then we take what's going on social media, put that into presentations, and take it to the streets for the underprivileged people to see what's going on. And so, for example, during the confrontations that were in December, I'm sure you remember the blue bra girl and the police hitting the people and this kind of thing. Those videos did not surface at all in traditional media, who had a totally different rhetoric, were telling a totally different story, and did not show this at all. On Facebook, we saw this immediately, 5 minutes after it happened. And so you could see that two parts of society had totally different visions of what the event was. So some activists on Facebook decided to organize a video show, put all those videos from the atrocities together, and organize a video show called Liars. And take that to the street all over Cairo. Suddenly they pop up with a screen, they put it up with a projector, and start showing to anybody who would see. You can't imagine how this has changed public opinion in less than a month, to the extent that the authorities are very bothered by this project now. There's another project called Tweet Street. You can go on Twitter and search the hashtag. What the tweets, the activists on Twitter are discussing, and what events they want to happen, and what ideas they want the world to know, they take that and they go to the street, particularly in underprivileged areas, and they have a conference in the street. Somebody just stands up with a microphone or a megaphone and starts explaining to people, we are these people on the internet, we're your brothers, we don't want anything strange, we want this country to be a better place, and they start explaining to them. So this type of activism is very new to us, and it's causing an unbelievable change in the level of awareness, in the level of sharing information, and in rallying public opinion, in winning the street with you when you are an activist. So this is a very important use of social media. Another very creative use is crowdsourcing solutions. Example, you go to demonstrations, you should expect to be gassed, tear gas. People started discovering the antidote to the tear gas, so the authorities changed the type of tear gas. So it started becoming this Mickey Mouse chase, you know. Every time the tear gas type changes, and as we progress, unfortunately, it became more and more lethal. So suddenly you had videos going viral on Facebook on how to make things at home that you take with you in your pocket. So you spray your face if you are going to go into a gas area, and you just walk there. Nothing happens to you. Of course, you can imagine the other guys, how they are feeling really pissed off and they're paying millions and then nothing is happening. Another important, very, very important crowdsourcing solution was to avoid rubber bullets. Unfortunately, you've seen in the previous video somebody with 2 patches on his eyes. He lost both eyes to rubber bullets. One during the 18 days and one 2 months ago. He lost both eyes. He's a big hero of the revolution in Egypt now. So activists started coming up with solutions on how to protect your eyes. So they came up with the idea of using swimming goggles and then taking the mesh that you put on industrial windows and folding it 3 times and then gluing it on the outside of your swimming goggles and then sealing them around your face and just walking around. So you had that and you sprayed yourself with the antidote of the gas and you were demonstrating. Nothing happened to you. The amazing thing is that other countries are learning the same things from us. In Malmo, in my lecture in Malmo, one of the audience asked to speak, and she said, "I'm Syrian. We have learned some of these solutions from you, so you can't imagine how many lives you have saved by putting these things on the internet." So here are some of the creative uses we have had for social media. Additionally, giving women a voice was very important, because before they didn't. Now they can be they can be at home with a baby or with a sick parent or whatever, and they can still say what they want and give ideas to those on the street and so on. Political campaigning. There are people who, there is this professor of political science, Egyptian, who used to teach in Michigan, and then he decided to run in parliament in Egypt. So he decided to take a challenge that he is not going to use anything, any tools in his political campaigning except Facebook and Twitter. So he didn't have a single banner in the street, he didn't hand out a single flyer, no posters, nothing. Only on Facebook and Twitter. He won by 100,000 votes. So these are examples of how we have been using the social media tool. Another important one was breaking class barriers. On the internet, you don't know who you're talking to. In Egypt, like many other countries, unfortunately, we had a huge gap between the rich class and the poor class. Suddenly, they became very close through being on the street together and also through internet discussions, creating social dialogue. In a country with 85 million, you can imagine how many subcultures we have. And when I say subcultures, I don't mean punk culture. I mean, different types of education, different types of social circumstances, and so on. So, for example, extreme liberals and conservative Islamists may not see face-to-face in real life, but they're having dialogue online every day. My page is one platform where they go and discuss. Maybe a lot of people, these things are my personal observations, so maybe if many of us sit together and we think some more, we'll notice a lot more things that are happening online, where people are using social media. I'm always very interested in humor. You could see how I'm laughing since I came here. So I have an entire lecture on the use of humor as an effective way of mass communication rallying public opinion in Egypt, in the revolution. And definitely social media helped a lot, because, for example, as soon as a politician does something silly, 10 minutes, there's a photoshopped picture of him or her that is incredibly hilarious, that is going viral. So it's not just to laugh at them, it's actually a form of awareness. It's telling the people who don't have a lot of background information why this is a wrong situation, why they should not support this type of speech, why this is a lie, in a simple, very creative, condensed way. So that's another important one. I have been trying my hand at using social media myself, and it seems somebody caught me red-handed. This was the cover of a Swedish magazine 2 years ago. That's me in the picture, in case you don't recognize me. And you can read Swedish, I hope, so read the headline. The reason why I'm showing you this is not to show off. The reason I'm showing you this is because that's proof that one person can make a lot of difference using that incredible tool that we all have right now. So self-leadership is one of the main lessons we have learned in the Egyptian revolution. There may not be a leader of the revolution, a person, one person, or a group of people who are creating the revolution or who are the leaders. But one of the amazing things is that there was this explosion of self-leadership and discipline that came to the surface because of the Egyptian revolution. So I'm just trying to tell you that you can do it. You have the tool now. And I want you, when you go home, to look at your smartphone and your laptop and maybe your iPad in a different way. Like, now I can do things with you. Now I can change the world with you, I hope. How I use social media myself, in addition to the different uses I talked to you about, I offer leadership to people who need it, particularly women. And this is very critical in Egypt, because in times of crisis, sometimes people are totally lost. We don't study thinking skills in school in Egypt. We are not required to offer research. So research papers are not part of your school year. They're not part of your university education. We have a very bad education system. This is one thing that we need to change very quickly. And so if you don't know, if you don't have critical thinking skills, for example, you have no idea how to differentiate between a good piece of information and a rumor. So that's one of the things I'm doing through my Facebook, offering people the tool on how to make the distinctions and how to think in times of crisis and this kind of thing. And I'm very, very happy that it's changing paradigms, and people are writing me saying, I think I've changed by being on your page. I really like that. I'm very happy with that. Another thing is that I connect with people around the world in order to make a difference in many things. And I'm happy to say that my work is appearing in people's theses. Some of my followers on Facebook are actually including my work in their curriculums and theses while they were teaching in other universities around the world, which is something, again, something really unusual for me. 2 years ago, this wasn't possible for all of us. Encouraging people to vote was one of the things I did the past couple of months. We have all voted for the first time, myself included, because as I told you, it was useless before. So I stood in line for 4.5 hours with about 5,000 women to be able to vote in November. The voting happened at a very, very difficult week where there were confrontations. People thought they weren't going to be voting, so we weren't ready, we weren't prepared. People didn't take time to read how they're going to vote, and they didn't take time to meet their representatives to find out who they vote for and so on. So I set up an impromptu helpline through my Skype. I put on my Facebook and I said on my Twitter, and I said anybody who wants to understand the voting process or wants to know a little bit about the candidates, just Skype me or write me on Facebook. And I'm proud to say that about 250 people have actually gone to the ballots and cast their votes because of talking to me. I was very happy with that, mostly women. So I'm a witness to how social media has forged that bond between different people of the world and how it has changed their lives. And how, as a tool, it could be very useful and it could be very dangerous and it could be totally transformational. At a very critical time in December, where it was a very depressing day, many people had died, I was about to give up, very down, I was very down, and I thought, that's it, we've lost it, nothing's going to change. I was in a very bad mood. Suddenly I had 2 messages on my Facebook. One from Syria, a woman saying, please Egyptians, hold on, don't give up now, because we're depending on you. The regime tells us, if you fail, the regime says you go home because you can see the Egyptians have failed, forget about this kid stuff and go back to your real life. Right after that one, I got another message from a friend in Occupy Wall Street. Please hold on, we look up to you. So when I get messages like that, I feel the weight of the responsibility of the written word. And I feel amazed that we have a tool in our hands that could change the world. It could literally topple dictators and change governments and give people a voice. And so it's if you look at it this way, then maybe the next time you are online, you can change lives as well. It's an amazing feeling. We must ask now, what next? The revolution to me is a work in progress. It's far from over. There's a lot to be done. The Arab countries who are going through the Arab Spring are, hopeful for so many things. But the real situation is summed up in this quote from Thomas Friedman, the American writer, in the New York Times. He says that the Egyptian uprising is the equivalent of flying elephants. No one has predicted it. No one had seen this before. So if you didn't see it coming, what makes you think you know where it's going? So the smartest thing to do now is just to shut up and take notes. Actually, that's a very surprising quote to me from Thomas Friedman in particular. He's not noted for being a big fan of Egypt, but since the revolution, he's really come up with some amazing articles. I agree with him. I mean, most of us are doing this. I mean, myself included. We take it one day at a time. Nobody can pretend to have the roadmap of where the Arab Spring is going or where the Egyptian revolution in particular is going. However, that is not preventing us from dreaming really big. This is a Photoshop, one of the buzzwords of the Egyptian revolution, Photoshop. This is a Photoshop of one of the international paintings, and this is how we see ourselves. We hope that the countries of the Arab Spring one day will be a union, and that we will all gather around the values that we have fought for and risked our lives for. and you know, make it a better world for ourselves and for everybody around us. I have no idea when this will happen, but it's definitely something that we're all dreaming of. The last thing I'm going to show you is the latest video from right before I left Egypt. It was the first anniversary of the Egyptian revolution. There were huge marches on the street asserting that we are still there, that the revolution is still going on, and that we want the military to hand over power to an elected civilian president. I was in one of the marches that started from all over Cairo to Tahrir Square, 11 marches. The one I was in had 60,000 people in it. I was taking some pictures, so some of the pictures you'll see in this video are mine and some are from the internet, and try to imagine this multiplied by 11. And by the time we reached Tahrir, Tahrir itself was packed. So that day, the estimated number of people on the streets were 4 million in Cairo alone. This happens in all the cities in Egypt, by the way. The focus on Tahrir Square in Cairo is because it's central and because it's iconic. But what you see happening in Tahrir Square is definitely happening many times over in different parts of Egypt. So here it is, another 1 minute of the last thing I saw before I left Egypt to come here.
Over the horizon and past the sea, I see my people waiting for me, standing tall with their heads held high. Hand in hand their dreams take flight, emerging from the shadows of every street, fighting to stand on their own 2 feet, hoping for a better and brighter tomorrow, shedding the chains that held them down.
I actually have a tradition of taking my flag to every country I go to and then taking a picture with the most thing that says this country. So I have a picture with my flag at Capitol Hill in the States and in the snow right here outside. 2011 was an amazing year for the world and for me. It has changed me definitely, and it has given me enough empowerment for a lifetime. I hope that 2012 will be just as empowering, and I hope that there will be less bloodshed and less sadness and more freedom and more democracy, not only for Egyptians but for the rest of the world. It's amazing for me that I can hardly believe that I'm actually here in a foreign country, thousands of miles away from home, because how I update my Facebook status. Now that you know that there are flying elephants in Egypt and snowmen in Saudi Arabia, I hope you can make this a better world too. Thank you for coming here.